Man should be strong and man should be dangerous. He should always be strong. He should always be dangerous. Always strong and dangerous. I say that because if he's not strong and dangerous, he can't fulfill righteousness. Being strong and dangerous has different contexts. For some, that might be a physical capacity that he has. For others, it may be a mental capacity. It might be a legal capacity that he has, political capacity, financial capacity. But regardless, he must be strong and he must be dangerous. That's Saturn and Pluto. Saturn fulfilling strength and Pluto fulfilling dangerous. And that context of dangerous means powerful. Powerful meaning having the capacity to initiate or intentionally transfer cause and effect. Cause and effect. Now, I put this statement behind the fact that man cannot fulfill righteousness and the principle of who he is without expressing the ability to defend and protect. He has no fulfillment without defending and protecting something or someone. And it cannot be himself alone. It has to be the principle of sacred life. Cancer. This usually goes back to women and children. It expands into family, community, nation, legacy. Thus, the fourth house in Cancer again expanded. We have Jupiter in the fourth house, and so what I'm going to go into, this sets the precedence for what I'm about to explain or remind us of. Venus is about to head into Aries. Of course, first, she checks in with Neptune at Aries. And checking in with Neptune at Aries is the feeling aligned with the ideal and my identity. Is a feeling aligned with my ideal and the opposition that I anticipate that is ahead. The resistance that I know is ahead. Do I feel my reasons? Do I see my reasons? Do I feel what I see? And do I see what I feel? Neptune and Aries combination here. Understand that. Facilitation comes in with Venus conjuncts Saturn. Do I have access to what I want to feel? Do I have the capacity for what I want to feel? To initiate it, to ground it, to strategize my approach to that reality. That's all fine and good. But here's the reminder. Aries is always in violation if Aries is not operating under the oracle or consultation of Cancer. When Aries is under the oracle and consultation of Capricorn, disconnected from Cancer, Aries is in violation. Aries manifests savagery, oppression, violence, greed, devil energy and expression when its reasons come from Capricorn. Its reasons must come from Cancer. Let me continue to emphasize this because this is what makes our actions, our motives through Aries civilized. This is what saves us from karmic warrants in how we operate through Aries. This is also how we remain consistent with what it means to co-create. Co-creation will always reflect well and consistent with Cancer matriarchal source. Co-creation ends at the point where there's a violation to matriarchal source. We are learning how to be civilized again. We are learning how to be civilized again because somebody taught us to become savage. Somebody made us savage. Somebody gave us the wrong influence, instructions, directions, interpretations, miseducation, and examples. And I'm going to remind us of who that is, even though I know most of you already know who that is. No matter what, we think we're going to initiate out of Aries. The child, Aries, must look to the mother's eyes, Cancer, for approval. You have to get approval. You have to get a certificate of construction. You have to get a building permit from Cancer. Understand that. So if you're going to build and construct anything, initiate anything out of Aries, you need a builder's permit from Cancer. You need a license of operation from Cancer. This is what makes us civilized. Your big guns, your big muscles, your strength, your grit, your talent, that which is so wow, amazing, great grandeur about you, it means absolutely nothing if it is not serving the matriarchal source. Once again, anything less, it is savage and not civilized. Do we understand what it means to be civilized? We can't get to that which is humanitarian until or unless we embody what it means to be civilized. We're getting back to what it means to be civilized. Do we understand? Because we have to get to what it means to fulfill humanitarian will collectively through Aquarius Pluto transit. Let's get this right, people. Let's get it understood. Now let's look into some things with our Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, and some bullshit that he had to say. Let's go. I'm using Pete Hegseth to animate a very important and critical point that we need to remember, and how we're utilizing the power of Aries, the intention of Aries. That is a very powerful and explosive, fiery nature that knows how to exert itself, assert itself, to transfer its convictions and concept through Pisces into reality. And in order to do that, it is a fight. It is a war. When we have a concept at Pisces, the 12th house, we have to go to war to establish in the physical realm that thought, that idea, that concept of spiritual substance that has to make it safely into the physical earth realm. We have to fight through the enemies of laziness, jealousy, envy, lurkers, monitoring spirits, theft of destiny, gluttony, self-hatred, insecurity, doubt, ignorance, betrayal. There are many enemies that we have to fight against to transfer substance from spirit realm into the physical realm. So that initiation has to come through a warrior. It is no different than a nation that wants to expand its territory, its footprint, its flag, its identity across other territories and borders. The borderline is that cusp, and that's where the wars initiate. Understand this. So, main point I'm emphasizing here, as you will hear throughout this discourse, is the fact that without Cancer, matriarchal source, Aries is only a savage in pursuit of happiness. A savage in pursuit of happiness. If you listen to the spoken and expressed convictions of females in the aftermath of feminism here in America, you will hear savagery in pursuit of happiness. When they speak, when they express themselves, what they want out of life and how they want it, their ideas of relationships, what they expect or want or feel entitled to out of it, you will hear savagery in pursuit of happiness. And why is that? Because through feminism, the female has been separated from her own essence and basis in Cancer. And she has stepped into Aries of herself in order to confirm through the masculine principle all that she wants to attain out of Capricorn in 10th house. That is a feminist. That is a feminist. She has a blind sight to that disconnection. When you separate Capricorn from Cancer, you get the devil card. You get the devil card because it does not have the convictions of the living God, man and woman. It does not have the moral compass or conscience. It will violate all moral, righteous, ethical, and civil codes to obtain its ends and objectives. And we see that as a fluid practice of Western females under the spell of feminism. They have become savages. This especially under the example of the African American female, who influences all women of all nations and their ideals of how to conceptualize feminism, thus they becoming savages too. As you listen to me, you can hear why I am the infamous. You can hear it. Because I'm not going to be liked for saying these things. It's not flattering. It's not cute. It doesn't feel good. It makes you angry. You clutch your pearls. You want to call me misogynistic. Who hurt you? I'm the villain. I'm the bad guy. Booga wooga. I'm the monster who's out to hurt you and put you down. I'm talking shit about all women. Yeah, go right ahead. Whatever you think, whatever you say I am. Okay, whatever. But anyway, this savagery has to end. It's about the savagery. Aries is not here to serve its own desires, and it's not here to serve Capricorn in disconnect from Cancer. It's the same with Venus or Libra. These two energies, Mars and Venus, they cannot act on their own. Mars and Venus does not have righteousness of its own. Mars and Venus does not know righteousness. It does not know good. It does not know correctness. It does not know civilized culture. It does not know integrity without its association and relation to Saturn, the Moon, and Pluto. Some would say, oh, what about Jupiter? No, it only turns into greed, gluttony, selfishness, and indulgence without Saturn, the Moon, and Pluto. It is Saturn, the Moon, and Pluto that keeps Mars and Venus in correctness in its expressions and impulses. Otherwise, it will eternally remain in violation in what it is doing and expressing. Understand that. We are used to only accusing Mars. We are used to only vilifying Mars. We are only used to characterizing Mars as being the one with the knife in the hand, the murder weapon. But I beg to differ. I am the infamous, so I dare to say what you think, but you too shook to say it. You too scared to say it. Don't worry, I'll say it. Let me give a little nigga example. An example from niggerhood. So if you go down to Niggerville, among all the niggas, you will notice one thing. That there's a reputation among us as so-called Black American males that we are violent, bloodthirsty, we're killers, we hate each other, we'll shoot each other and everything else. And I'm here to testify, a lot of that used to be true. It was very true. We had a long run of that being very true, especially during the crack epidemic, the crack eras of the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. Yes, it was actually a lot of truth to that. You see how easy that was for me to admit it, even though I'm a black male? A lot of y'all motherfuckers need to learn the same depth of authenticity. What is it taking from you to be honest about who you have been or who you are? And even if you're not the one out running the streets pulling the damn trigger, you know you stand in the image and likeness of your brother or sister who is doing it. But it kills you inside. It makes you feel so insecure and powerless to admit that this is the legacy that you have been standing in. Does that take away from me to admit that that has been the legacy that I've been born into, and I have even participated in upholding that dark legacy? No, it doesn't. It only helps for me to be honest about it. So we're used to saying, oh, the narcissist through Mars. Oh, the violent one through Mars. Oh, the murder weapon through Mars. Oh, the one who hurt somebody through Mars. Why? Because Mars' weapon is always going to be a hot gun or a bloody knife that you can see. Blood on my knife and the body on my gun. Understand that. Blood on my knife and the body on my gun. That's Mars. The thing with Venus is it's not in plain sight. You don't get to see Venus' weapon. Hers is hidden. Her weapon is not the same as Mars. Her offense is not through the same means or algorithm as Mars. Mars is direct. Venus is alternating. AC/DC. Alternating current, direct current. Venus goes to wars in ways of illusions, manipulations, disguise. Mars attacks the body. Venus attacks the character and image, the reputation. Venus gets other powers to go to war against you, to leverage consequence against you. Mars utilizes its own agency to do so. You see, there's a difference. But just because there's a difference doesn't mean that we're going to be intellectually lazy and come to conclusions that simply are not true about the equivalency and offenses between the male principle and the masculine and the feminine principle. How long have we heard about the 13% of the population, but responsible for 80-something% of the violence in America? And how much we murder and go to jail and go to prison and all this other stuff and stop the violence and stop the killing. But it goes right up under our nose that Black American females are at a startling 42% rate in comparison to the fluctuation of 1% to 12% rate of other females in demographic to abortions. A startling expression of genocide. And it has you to question who is responsible for more murders in the Black community. Is it the males or is it the females? But because males do so with the pistol and the knife, your lazy, feeble-minded ass will go ahead and say, oh, the men, oh, they need to stop the violence. They killing everybody. They just killing and they just shooting and killing. But unwittingly, it goes under the radar that females done often before the child even gets to take a first breath. Is it a life or is it not a life? Is it or is it not murder? That because on Saturday night you didn't use a condom, because on Saturday night you drunk too much, and you let a nigga nut in you and you change your mind, because on Saturday night you got to arguing and you decide you no longer want to bring the child into the world, you go to the abortion clinic and you end the life. Whether it's at the initial stages or rather or not, the fetus has a heartbeat, it's still a life that is contemplating spiritual codes and a soul to occupy that lump of cells and flesh that has a pulse with a life path, a destiny, and a spiritual history coming behind it. But yet you make yourself the authority who decides whether or not this life gets to live or whether or not it goes back to the essence. Is it not the same judgment that's being taken? Is it not the same execution but through different means? That a life that was conjured or requested to make presence in this timeline is denied life by your authority, male or female, by knife or gun or by abortion, it is still murder. It is still denial of one's right to life. But we don't assign that description because we're used to justifying all of the behaviors or misactions of females in this Western nation. That's what we're used to doing. There's no accountability. She does what she wants. 42%. That is a genocidal rate. It challenges the rate of genocide even in Gaza. I point that out because Venus and Mars, there's more to consider in how these energies work and how the algorithms behind them, Aries and Scorpio with Mars, Libra and Taurus with Venus, there's more to consider in how these energies work. We need to request more intellectual power and capacity to contemplate these things to extract spiritual understanding and not be lazy. What are we really dealing with? What can we expect with this exchange and transit of Aries Venus and Pisces Mars? Understand? What can we expect? So, in this discourse, I want us to listen carefully because there's a few things that I want us to really think about. Where we're headed and what we could do different to match his dark energy. Let's see how honest we can think. Now, you all know recently they accused another nigga, describing him as Muslim and saying that he had all kind of Islamic literature in his vehicle. Yeah, okay. Typical. And see, many of you probably believed it. Many of you probably believed it. But let's think about a couple of things here. Now, this is who they want you to believe is the enemy. It's all summarized right here. First of all, a nigger. A nigger. America has wanted you to see black males as the offender, the enemy, the monster, the dummy, the scapegoat, the one whose fault it always is, the one who can't do right, intellectually and genetically inferior if you let him tell it. And he trained African-American female to continue that legacy of description against him. And she does a good job. She do a better job than he does of upholding that ignorant misconception about black American males. But I call to witness the children of the world to testify on behalf of the black American male, even though who you're looking at is a Senegalese. I call all the children of the world to testify and to witness that the black American male is not a threat. He's not a danger. He's not out to get you and harm you. He has his problems. He has his issues. Yes, he has so much about him to improve. But he damn sure ain't lurking the damn streets, foaming at the mouth, looking to take your ass out. He ain't stunting your ass. And why do the children love him? Why do the children like him? Why do the children admire him? Why do the children believe him? Why do the children trust him? Why do the children look at him like a father in which they pattern their character and image and communications and expressions after him, the Black American male? Why is that? Ask yourself the damn question. Why? Why is that? Why is he the secret lust of all women? You tell me. You tell me. Let's put it out there today. The typical plot, propaganda and fear-mongering. A person of color. That's the second description. It got to be a person of color. Who's the villain? Who's the bad guy? Who's the monster? Who's the threat? A person of color. Third description, a male. You don't need to get into that. Fourth description, a Muslim. You guessed it. Property of a lost sweatshirt. Yeah, okay. Is the CIA getting lazy? Are they uninspired? Do they got too much work on their hands where they can't pay attention to detail and come up with something a little more creative and brilliant than this? They can't think something up better than this? These niggas is falling off. Do they need to hire more help to come up with more creative concepts to push this legacy of propaganda against black males and Muslims? Is it believable? How many of you out there actually believed it? Come on. Let's tell the truth. Shame the devil and tell the damn truth. All right. Keep it in mind. Let's move on.
Enemy, but you are better. But we must prove it every single day. History doesn't care if we're tired, if we're scared, or if the fight feels big. It demands warriors who rise anyway. Peace through strength, the warrior ethos, lethality, unity of purpose, those are not slogans. They're the beating heart of what it means to wear the uniform, that uniform. You think clearly under fire, you act decisively in chaos, you uphold the Constitution, and you uphold our country without hesitation. We are not defenders anymore. We are warriors, trained to kill the enemy and break their will. History is watching. Be the force you swore an oath to be: focused, disciplined, lethal, and unbreakable. We will finish this on America First conditions of President Trump's choosing. Nobody else's, as it should be. And know this above all, President Trump and I have your back, always. Through fire, through criticism.
Imagine being the leadership of the Department of War, as it's retitled. It used to be Department of Defense. And you impress upon young men that they are no longer defenders, but they are warriors. This is a crisis because you're assigning to these young men and women and placing assumptions upon these young men and women and what they have signed up for in a very misleading context that presents, for those of them who would know better, a conscientious objection within themselves. A crisis and conflict between the mission, and the inner conviction that should be present within every living man and every living woman. We know that the axis that we are drawing our inner awareness from is Cancer and Capricorn. Cancer Jupiter is expanding our memory of who we are in humanity, our memory of our duty to humanity, and our memory of the wounds that bore us that has everything in common. Everything in common is that what sets us apart from some beasts of the earth is our ability to realize and express assertively our convictions within a moral awareness and a sense of righteousness, justice, and goodwill. Cancer has the only basis that makes us civilized. Without Cancer, we have no beginning in realizing what it means to be civilized. Pete Hegseth, in his statement that the troops are no longer defenders, but that they are warriors, it is a confession and exposure of who created the global crisis that has gone on as an Earth legacy in modern times. We are living out the consequences of the imagination of white Christian nationalists and Khazarians. We are living in the lust for violence, the perversion, the insecurities, the greed and obsession with inappropriate power and authority. In the imaginations of that of white men and Khazarians. Pete Hegseth is making a confession in what he states. And that confession is that they have decided in legacy to separate from the matriarchal obligation, commitment, and duty to Cancer, Mother Matriarch in the nature of man and woman, and that which sets the basis for civilization and humanity overall. There is no humanitarian mission. There is no claim of civilization. There is no noble mission. There is no goodwill without the intention having its root, its reflection, and its awareness in Cancer. What we see happening today It's a repetition in fractals. Of who the enemy has become to the whole family of humanity.
No, they're not talking about the Epstein files because there ain't no niggas in it. If there was an overwhelming amount of niggas in the Epstein files, it would have been blown up by now, especially with minors. Woo! But hey, since there ain't no black folks in it, they can care less. That's what them white people be doing. Not those white people. Those white people over there are cool. Them white people over there, ugh, watch out for them. They'll allow at the child's expense to be abused. Well, the women are abused too. They turn the other cheek because the husband rocked the other one. Hey, white privilege, they'll protect it, don't talk about it. But we all know if it was non-white people. So, they're doing it to themselves. We see it. Those good white people over there see it. Everyone sees it. And it makes me as a black man happy knowing that there's white people who see it, but it also reiterates what we as minorities been saying about these white people. This is the shit they do. They won't even admit it. They'll just be like, oh yeah, we're moving past that now. What? At the expense of the victims. So it's nice to see that we're not caught up in it. But it sucks because they're white. So guess what they're going to do? Protect white at all costs, even if it comes at the expense of eating children, raping children, and murdering children. Because they're white and it's amongst themselves. Has nothing to do with anyone who isn't white. Just make sure you got a lot of butter on the popcorn and unlimited refills for whatever carbonated drink you like. Right? Take it easy.
You betray humanity when you take the trust that is upon you with the people's youth, the people's children, the young blood, vitality of our nation, and you assign them to inhumane pursuits and missions detached from matriarchal will. The earthly matriarchal expression or manifestation of that will can be found and confirmed with the Constitution. That is the matriarchal foundation of what is claimed as United States of America, the Republic of America, reflected in Constitution, which is matriarchal claim. This adopted from the Confederate Nations of Native, or more appropriately to express, indigenous tribes, where this ideal was adopted from. Pete Hegseth is another confession of the fact that the Constitution could not come from the soul of white men. It could not come from the nature of white men. It could not come from the imagination and ideals of white men. It is not who they are. Thus, between Islam, biblical study, and Confederate tribal nations, the Constitution has its basis of inspiration and compilation, not an original creativity or inspiration of the soul of white men. Impossible. He shows every day who he is. He shows every day what his mindset is, what his imagination consists of. He shows it every day, and he confesses it every day. You don't have warriors once you disconnect them from matriarchal obligation and commitment. They are no longer warriors. When you disconnect a warrior from the matriarchal obligation, the reason for which they draw a sword, the reason for which they grow strong, the reason for which they face death, the reason and intention for which they stand to resist any opposition, the reason for which they give their lives. It can never be for themselves and they remain warriors. It can never be for money and they remain warriors. It can never be for the sake of domination and they remain warriors. Control, greed, power. That's not a warrior. That's a savage. A bloodthirsty savage. A thief. A pirate. A warmonger. It is an uncivilized claim and pursuit because it does not come back to matriarchal reason. To defend the Constitution. To defend who is vulnerable in this nation. To defend the legacy of this nation. A warrior only remains a warrior when those behind him is the reason that he stood. You only get to claim being a warrior when it is not about yourself. You cannot claim to be a warrior if it is not for Cancer. She is what makes you a warrior. Her reasons, her instructions, her requirements, her hopes, her vulnerabilities, her causes. It's the only thing that makes you a warrior if you should stand. If you look down the halls of memory, white men have called many savages. White men have called many uncivilized. White men have described many and classified many legally as less than human. And today he confesses that it is himself who he was exposing all along. It was himself that he was running from and describing all along. It was himself that he was characterizing in history all along as the savage, as a one who is less than human. The one who humanity should be aware of and careful of and watchful of, mindful of, because he's dangerous. He's reckless. He has no conscience. It's not who he describes. The indigenous, the Native American, the Latino, the black male, the Muslim. It is himself. He is the villain. And the Khazarian who taught him. The Khazarian who sponsors him. The Khazarian who uses him. All while calling him Goyim. Pete Hegseth represents the utter betrayal in the legacy of white men in government, in leadership, and in claims of their practices and expression of humanity. Humanity is something that they cannot comprehend or understand. And as I said before, where is their conscience? Their conscience is their woman. Their conscience is their women. I know all about this. I'm speaking of a macrocosm, but I'm well aware of a microcosm where I myself was a part of that. It's no different where you have little thugs, street niggas, and drug dealers, because ultimately that's exactly what Pete Hegseth confessed that he and those who he is managing, that's what they are. They're thugs, separated from matriarchal intention in what they do and why they're doing it. That's a thug. And we've seen this before. In black communities, we grow up reading the feedback, the body language, the behavior patterns, the dating patterns of black women. And we all grew up seeing that they don't want us if we're not bloodthirsty criminals and thugs and drug dealers. They don't want anything to do with us if we're not disconnected from matriarchal will in our presentation and expression of ourselves. They don't want us if we're not savage. They don't want us if we are not in an uncivilized state of greed, consumption, worship of money, violence, laughter. Drinking, smoking, clubbing, hypersexuality, hypermasculinity. She don't want anything to do with you if you're not in this state. And young men grow to make the same mistake in black communities. Instead of being true to themselves, instead of being what their own soul has them to be, they long to be accepted by their female counterpart. They want to be received by their female counterpart. They want to appear as desirable to the female counterpart. The young man wants girls. How does he get the girl? He has to watch the girl to see what she likes. He's a hunter. After he watches black girls to see what they like, he adjusts his presentation. He changes the way he dresses, he changes the way he walks, he changes the way he talks. And what does that lead to? Another street nigga, another thug, another criminal, another gangster, another violent young man walking the streets without a reason to justify his rage and thirst for violence, except that it gets him the attention that he's looking for. This is what I mean by when men go astray, you have to always ask the question, where is their conscience? And their conscience is their female counterparts. It is their women. It is their sister. It is their mother. It is their daughters. It is their wives. When women don't speak up, when women are not aligned, when women do not amplify or echo a conscience, men are always going to go astray. They will resort back to the savages that they can't find their way out of. She is the oracle. She is the conscience by which he can remain out of the wilderness and not lost in the wilderness. White women have a great responsibility to humanity to amplify and lift their voices louder than ever, because the whole world is in danger. The whole world is threatened by their brother, their husband, their fathers, their uncles, their neighbors. While the illusion is that it's some black man lurking in the shadows dragging his knuckles somewhere, or some Muslim ready to blow something up with some property of Allah sweatshirt on. The truth is always in plain sight. But nobody wants to deal with the truth when it's mentioned, when it's recited. We have 400 years of this recitation. 400 years of this witnessing. 400 years on record to state this claim, that is indeed who he is. He is the danger to humanity. He and Khazarians. The world is not safe from white men and Khazarians. The world is threatened by the imagination and behavior and lust of white men and Khazarians. Their pedophilia, number one in this nation, in high places, and their willingness to separate from matriarchal source and connection. Her role as the woman is to make sure that that disconnect does not take place, that there is no disconnection from matriarchal obligation, responsibility, and memory. Taking the quick route to power, control, domination. But at what cost? At what cost? Americans have been utterly betrayed. Our elders eating cat food and tuna. Our veterans medical treatment, housing crisis, mental illness, homelessness, drugs. the morale of the people is shot and discouraged. Credit card debt, car loans maxed out, repossessions and foreclosures through the roof. What are we fighting for? What are we defending? Because it's certainly not the people. It's certainly not humanitarian. How do we conveniently forgive it, forget it, and overlook it? That this is from the imagination and leadership of white men and Khazarians. Why are we so forgiving every time it comes to him? But when it's a person of color, oh, we're set on fire, we can't hold it back. We go on a witch hunt. We've got to have justice now. Do something now. If the military are not defenders, but instead warriors, on what logic? The Department of War rather than the Department of Defense. Savagery, uncivilized, unprincipled, vile, ill repute, demonic. I recite this because Aries, the warrior youth, is where we have a particular algorithm or spirit to romanticize through Neptune and to materialize and ground into our reality through Saturn. Everyone will do this differently, and Pete Hegseth has confessed in how he intends to manifest this ideal. Through comic book, lust for war. But as I said before, and I hope that you all are paying attention, is that Aries is the youth that looks to its mother's eyes for its reasons. If he can find a reason in his mother's eyes, Cancer, he has no hesitation. His conscience is clear. His actions and initiatives are warranted. And the spirit of truth, conviction, boldness, and even love flows well through him. An Aries initiating impulse of explosive fire. And this is what you all will need to remember. The warrior is the embodiment of Aries, who first looks to his mother or his sister or his daughter or his wife's eyes for his reason and why he's going to war and why he should draw his sword or why he should learn to defend and protect. He looks in their eyes, the matriarchal principle and archetype, for the depth of courage. To overcome every intimidation that death has to offer. With that glance, you have eternal life. We are under the leadership of very immature, childish, white men with immeasurable power, resources, money, and political leverage. But they lack wisdom. They lack understanding. They lack spiritual insight and conviction. They are dense. They are surface. They are shallow. And it clarifies how Khazarians are able to mount them and take full control of their heads. Becoming the puppets and hands of Khazarians. And this has been the case since Christopher Columbus first came to the Dominican Republic and seen the first nigger of his life. This has been the case. Houston, we have a problem. And we've got to watch very carefully because the predictability is already there. And here is what I will clarify. Whoever's reason is the matriarchal source, it is expanded by Jupiter. And the one whose reason is the matriarchal source expanded by Jupiter is the one who will have victory. It is the one who will overcome the other. It is the one who will prevail. It is also the one who will never die. That's what Pete doesn't understand. These are children in the White House, enjoying power and money and authority, that the wisdom cannot circumference. When they open their mouths, you hear the complete and utter ignorance. That a man should have overcome in a lifetime with white hairs on his head. You hear utter ignorance. And you hear the confession that they did not originate the Constitution. No, they did not. There are still nations out there who care about their citizens, who care about their republics, who care about their people, and who honor their Constitution, even if they do dabble in crime themselves. And I'm here to let you all know that we all have to pay the price together. Because in peace times, we already claimed our fate of the outcome of war times. We claimed our fate when we betrayed our moral obligation and responsibilities. When we forgot our humanity. When money, status, careers, feminism, capitalistic competition, and corporate lust, it became our commitment. America savagely threw down and turned its back on the fourth house in Cancer, cursed the fourth house in Cancer as if something inconvenient and in the way, like an elder who raised us up to full strength, and then we turned them in to the old folks' home, never visiting, never giving a call, never saying I love you or anything. We just walked away and let them rot away in the senior citizens' home. That's what we did to the fourth house in Cancer under the glory of feminism and corporate greed. Since Capricorn Pluto transit and Pisces Neptune transit. And here it is. We've been turning up since. Hypersexual nation since. Woman power, woman power, woman power, woman power since. Woman, 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 woman. Women's rights from the hills down to the low valleys. We have been all about women, 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 women. You got what you wanted, women. You got everything you asked for. You got everything you fought for. Now that it's not about your damn self, why are you so quiet? Now that it's not for a place in the corporate market, why are you so damn quiet? Now that it's not about fighting to take off all your clothes and show everything that you got to a camera and to the street corners. Remove the shame from every immoral decision and act. Why so quiet now? There are many things to fight for, and there are many reasons to lift our voice. There are many reasons to disturb the peace. But you're so peaceful. You're so quiet now. Why are you so peaceful now? You got what you wanted. And in exchange, the nation has lost all its morals and values. The children have no memory of what it used to be like. The family unit is dead and gone. The feminine character is something of a mystery that no woman can seem to decode, figure out, tap back into, study, come to a conclusion about, or articulate, nor demonstrate. It's gone and lost. So who will become the conscience? The reminding tongue that transfers conviction to a devil. And what do I mean by devil? Capricorn by itself represents the devil card. That is because Capricorn is the polarity of Cancer. In isolation from Cancer, it can only be the devil because it is the opposite of what Cancer is, which is true in living essence of man and woman, the image of God. The devil is when you have stripped yourself of Cancer conviction, Cancer alignment, Cancer balance, Cancer memory, Cancer reverence. You become a damn devil. Shadow Capricorn. And this essentially is who the white Christian nationalists or the legacy of white males has become consistently in the past 400 years of our knowing him. And the Khazarian as well. A disconnect in himself from Cancer. And that transferred to the black woman through feminism, in which she then transferred it to all women of the world through her power of influence, thus they becoming devils too. We have become devils.
Today, perhaps today, some black hostages and some female hostages will be released from the American Embassy compound. Is that true?
ما آزادی زنها را و آزادی سیاه‌ها را
The freedom of the women
این
and blacks will be given.
در اسلام یک احترام ویژه دارند.
Women are given great dignity in Islam, and the blacks
آمریکا بودند
have been oppressed in the United States.
و اونها را ما
Great injustice was done unto them.
بلکه اونها را
They were under pressure
اشعار بودند که
in the United States.
اینجا آمدند.
Thus they came here.
لحاظا ما برای
We are doing this owing to the tenets of Islam.
اسلام و خدا این عمل را کردیم.
In return,
ولی از آقای کارتر
we ask nothing
پاداشی نمی‌خواهیم.
for their freedom.
تمام مطلب ما این است که
We want the Shah. Carter must return him. The world's international law agree with this principle.
Pete Hegseth recites ethos of his take or Aries Neptune concept that he's pitching and proposing, in which he's describing his military as trained to kill the enemy. And I ask you to expand and raise the frequency of your thoughts. See the confession of his own immaturity and the legacy of immaturity that has endured under these delusional white Christian nationalists for 400 years. Why is your ethos to kill the enemy? Shouldn't your ethos be to defend your nation, the weak? To defend the women and children of your nation, to defend the elders of your nation, the veterans of your nation, the legacy of your nation? To defend the peace and confidence of your nation, your constitution? That is clarification of ethos, because it celebrates your values. It celebrates your principles, your morals, your reasons, your why factors. Pete Hegseth describes the mentality of a savage, whose ethos and reason is violence. Meanwhile, the very ones who he wants to vilify understand these things that he fails to understand about life, about civilization, about humanity. And he's failing to establish spiritual clarity in those who he leads. How can you be a real leader or claim to be a real warrior without spiritual value and conviction anchored in wisdom of civics and humanity? You're a savage, an ignorant, childish savage is what you are confessing that you are, because you have no understanding of these things. When you're leading young people, teenagers who join the military out of desperation, who also may not know or understand these things. And how can we fault the youth for not knowing? How can we fault the youth for not understanding? How can we fault them? But you're misleading the youth with these perversions of ethos in reciting that these are the reasons why you have joined the military, to become a savage, a killer. We will, out of his mouth, verbatim, we will hunt you down and kill you. No, that's not the speech of civilized man. And they wonder why in their legacy, they lost damn near every war that they have stepped into. Because the reasons have been all wrong. These are people who never had real principle in their life, only motives. Anybody who's a real warrior understands that you got a hell of a fight on your hands if you don't have a real reason to fight and somebody else does. It don't matter how small that person is, how skinny that person is. If that person has a reason to fight, you got a problem on your hands. And I know that because I'm a fighter, nigga. I grew up fighting. I grew up as a warrior. Unlike Pete, who went to combat and obviously didn't understand why the hell he was in combat. He had no comprehension of why the fuck he was even in the damn military. A street nigga can understand this shit at a basic level. Honor, valor, principle, ethos, your cause. It is these principles that make you fearless. It's these principles that has you to laugh in the face of death. It's these principles that makes you unconquerable. And that's why we lost damn near every war that we ever went into. Even though the media try to remix it like we won the motherfucker, but we didn't. Going all over the earth getting our ass whooped. And it's for reasons like that How you gonna send kids into war indoctrinated with this ignorance against a nation of men who have clarified their reasons in their matriarchal conviction for their nation, their family, their fellow brother, their fellow sister, their fellow man, their countryman, their countrywoman? How you gonna win against that? How are these children supposed to win in these wars against motherfuckers who's willing to strap a damn bomb on their body and blow themselves up for the conviction that runs deep in their soul? Right or wrong, it's what they have resolved in themselves. You better find a real reason, and you better find one quick. Because one thing I understand about war and violence, as a person who grew up in pure violence, your courage only lasts as long as your reason. Your heart cannot stabilize upon a lie. When you have a real reason to stand up, when you have a real reason to go to war, when you have a real reason to fight, your heart stays stable. You don't shake. You don't flinch. You don't get scared. You become invincible. You become convinced that bullets will fly off of you and bounce off your skin. That conviction runs deep. I know all about that. I have lived it all my life. I know how this works. And this is why we, the people, can't seem to find the courage to resist, to challenge, to expose, to demand. We don't have clarification in our ethos, principles, and values either. We're disconnected from matriarchal source as well. Corporate greed and competition and feminism is the reason why. But we don't want to admit it. Instead, we want to take our time being offended at whoever says it, whoever exposes it, whoever calls it out. You heard Pete Hegseth in his speech, where he put some grease and oil on the proposal that we're now under the authority of President Trump instead of Congress. And rather or not, we walk authorized into the war stage, which is incorrect. Don't you know Americans can no longer read? Gen Z on forward cannot read. They can't write cursive. They can't speak in full sentences. They can't read full sentences. They can't read books. They can't focus for more than 3 minutes at a time. Their source of knowledge and awareness is the internet, social media, TikTok. So we see how easy it is for somebody to get on the podium and say some dumb, ignorant ass shit and get clean away with it. And nobody ever questioned it. See, I look like the bad guy. I look like the crazy one because I never gave away my critical thought. I never gave away my ability to think. I didn't surrender my power of thought. I've always had it, and by the grace of God, I still have it. I know how to think. And it's only because I'm not afraid to be authentic. Let me ask you, can you say the same thing? I'm just asking. Inquiring minds want to know. Do you have a free mind or not? This is why we can't get no action. No resistance. Too caught up in the bullshit and illusions. Can't tell the difference between a lie and a damn truth. Muslims are not the enemy of the earth. Minorities are not the threat to our societies. Never have been and never will be. It's the ones who want you to think that who turn out to be the real enemy of all of humanity. And they show you every day right in your face, but you don't believe it because you were conditioned to always think white is right no matter what. White is right. White is good, white is right, and white can't be wrong. White must always be right. And that's why a lot of you light-skinned people out there, you fight so hard to win a place with white proximity because you are under the illusion and perception that that's where your security is at. And I'm here to tell you, God ain't gonna let your security be there no more. That story's over with. Your security is with matriarchal commitment, conviction, obligation, and keep. Sitting at the foot of mother. We better get this right. This used to be a universal understanding of all of the earth, of the matriarchal tribes of this whole entire earth of indigenous people. The black, copper tone, chestnut tone, cigar colored, and dark brown people of the earth have always been on matriarchal foundation. Until white and light skin came along, changing shit up and shifting what was from Cancer over to Capricorn, separating it from Cancer, which is a conversion of Capricorn into the devil card. Incorporation of all states and statuses. Now we have to learn to do the exact opposite. Thus, the gravity of Jupiter concentrates in Cancer. Remembering through our connection with Mother. I'm trying to get y'all niggas to understand this.